Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We are jumping right back into World Cup content with the first round of playoffs, the round of 16, against Melvin Keh of Singapore. I really hope I'm pronouncing their last name right, but if not, I apologize. They are actually the Singapore national champions, so this is going to be a really tough round. They are known to favor a swordfish team with Porygon and Calyrex, so I attempted to counterpick them with a hyper-offensive Calyrex-Shadow plus Kyogre team. Unfortunately for me, they did not go with either of those. They actually bring the same Eveldon 6 plus Slowbro that my opponent from last round did. And that's a really poor matchup for Calyrex-Shadow plus Kyogre. To be honest, I kind of panic when I go to choose my team for this round. I just didn't really prep a lead for this one. So what I end up settling for is Charizard and Clefairy as a lead because of how well Charizard and Mungus did last week. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work, and I don't quite realize that until I've already locked in. It's worse because Clefairy lacks Amoonguss' immunity to Sleep Powder and resistance to Regioleki's Max Lightning, so basically my opponent has two ways to deal with my redirection here, and leaves Charizard in a rough spot, potentially, if they lead with both of them. I also really hesitate as to whether to bring Calyrex at all. It obviously struggles massively into a Veltal, but I figure that I need it to seriously damage the Slowbro, so I end up going for it in this game, and we can see how that turns out for me. Yeah, now this match was a lot of panic when it first started. I had very specific counter picks in mind when I chose this like very hyper offensive team with like physical Regieleki for Max Darkness plus Astrals or Water Spouts. So this really put me in a rough spot here. Anyway, yeah, my opponent does lead with Venusaur and Regieleki, so those disadvantages I was talking about earlier that Clef has versus Amoonguss, they are going to come out pretty much immediately. What I figure my opponent's going for here when I choose my moves is a Max Lightning plus Sleep Powder. I figure that covers pretty much anything I can do. They can either kill Aleki or sorry, they can either kill Zard or Clef and then put the remaining one to sleep. What I'm hoping is that they don't know about my Lumberry. After which point they like I could at least kill the Venusaur, and then attempt to just stall through the remainder of Regioleki's max. Unfortunately for me, this read does not really work out. We can see here I go for my max, which means that they don't go for their max with Regieleki, and they're almost certainly not going for it with Venusaur into a Charizard. So we can see how this plays out now once the animation's over. Yeah, I go for my follow me here, and Venusaur is staying small. So you can kind of see where this one's going. They go for a Vault Switch off of my Clefairy, so that hurts quite a bit, but it's fine. The problem though, they Vault Switch off of Clefairy. I believe they bring out Groudon here, if I'm not mistaken. What that does is make Venusaur faster. It's kind of irrelevant since it's going to be your standard Focus Sash Venusaur on one of these teams. But had I not gone for Follow Me, it would allow them to go for the Quick Sleep Powder. So Groudon comes out, makes them faster, and so they'll get their move off before Charizard gets to go. And it is predictably that Sleep Powder, and unfortunately for me, it does connect. I mean, 75% accurate, it's more likely to than not, so I can't complain too much, but I would have loved a bit of RNG in my favor at this point. Clefairy goes to sleep, and Wildfire goes off. It's going to bring this Venusaur down to its Sash, and then, of course, Wildfire at the end of the turn will take it out. But I'm now in a really bad position. Reason being that once the Wildfire takes out the Venusaur, I am now going to have to deal with this Regieleki. I could have played this better in a bunch of different ways. Had I protected Clef and gone for the Wildfire, that would have been a really great play. But that means that I'd have to, just accept the risk that they could Max Lightning Charizard and end me on turn one, right? Friend Guard's very powerful, but it is not enough to handle a modest Life Orb Regieleki Lightning into something that is weak to it, even with Dynamax. The other thing I could have done, which is a little more middle of the road, is target the Aleki, because I'd follow Mead. That wouldn't have been bad, because I would just take out the Groudon. But then even at that point, right, the Aleki can come into the Groudon slot, so we're in a bad spot no matter what we do here, unless we make a really aggressive read by protecting Clef and then and then attacking the Venusaur slot. So what I do here, with Regieleki out, the Dynamax on their part seems pretty obvious. Either of their mons will do really well here. Max Lightning or Max Rockfall will Oko Charizard regardless of the Friend Guard. So what I do is I go for Max Guard. What I click on Clefairy doesn't matter. Unfortunately, the Follow Me that I clicked there means that I went before the Sleep Powder due to priority, which means that I have not taken my guaranteed sleep turn yet. So what I really need to do here is go for the Max Guard, have Clef live through that turn, hopefully, almost certainly, unless they hard read me, and then just pray for the 1-turn wake up. It's really rough. I don't even know what the percentage chances are for a 1-turn wake up. I want to say it's 30% or 50. But yeah, it's not great odds to be banking your whole game on, but at this point, that is where we are. And they go ahead and max the Groudon, which is interesting. I personally would have, I think that Alecki is the better max here, but they may not know their calc off the top of their head, that Alecki is a guaranteed kill. And so the reason they do that, I go for my max guard here, and what they do is they go for Electro Web, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they go for Electro Web. So what this tells us is that the Groudon is at least 112 speed. That would put it at, that would makes it just fast enough to outspeed base 100s like Charizard after a single speed drop or boost on the respective party, and they go for Rockfall. But the thing is that they're kind of leaving it up to fate there with the 5% potential mischance on Electro Web. So I personally think the Alecki is the better move there, especially since you could like maybe Swords Dance your Groudon up if it or Bulk Up if it has any setup moves. But anyway, yeah, here's where we are. So what I do here is I click Airstream on the Alecki and pray for the Wake Up plus Follow Me, right? If I do get this, that means that I can negate a potential Electro Web drop while redirecting away the Rockfall and taking out the Alecki. Unfortunately for me, as you can see while I was talking, Clefairy stays asleep. So, and the Electro Web connects. So, 95%. Again, I can't really be mad about that that kind of RNG, but literally any bit of luck here would have been really nice, and we get none of it. So Clefairy is still alive. Charizard goes down. Yeah, we've experienced a 2-turn sleep so far. And from here, we are pinned pretty hard. Clefairy does manage to live through the Sand Chip, which is nice. What I end up doing here, I have both Kyogre and Calyrex in the back, right? I think I take some time to deliberate on this, but ultimately the choice ends up being Calyrex. And the reason for that is that Groudon would have to be exceptionally fast to outspeed Calyrex after just a single Electro Web. If I recall, it's something like that you need to be timid or jolly rather, because Kyogre can't handle it when modest and has the same cannot outspeed Calyrex at +1 while modest, and it has the same base speed as Groudon. Groudon's almost never run jolly, so it seems pretty safe that Calyrex will get an attack off. So what I can do here is pray that I don't end up with a 3-turn sleep, and then click Helping Hand plus Astral Barrage. And with any luck, that because I have my choice specs, I could potentially take out the Groudon here. It's going to be pretty close, though. So yeah, we click Astral, and we go for a Helping Hand. Or did I click Follow Me here? I think Helping Hand is the play. If I click Follow Me, that was a mistake. But I'm deliberating on it. We'll see on that one. I think Follow Me was something I considered, but the reason you never want to do that is because Electro Web is spread anyway, right? So yeah, I do click Helping Hand on there. And they withdraw Regieleki. This is really smart. It basically preserves their win con into the Kyogre that they are assuming I have in the back. And yeah, and Clefairy stays asleep, so I mean, once again, it's a full 3-turn sleep. Just bad luck on my part there. But if you look at that damage, I don't know that a Helping Hand, like an extra 50% of that, takes out the Groudon. So at this point, it ultimately really didn't matter. I led poorly into this, and like leading poorly plus poor RNG, like again, it just feels bad for me to be complaining about it, because ultimately all the roles that I am complaining about were in my opponent's favor, but it's just more like the sum of all of them together went together to make this game absolutely unwinnable. So yeah, at this point, I have 100% lost, because the Yveltal can easily take an Astral and then proceed to KO my Calyrex, and Calyrex is choiced, so I can't protect or anything along those lines. Especially if that Yveltal has Sucker Punch, then it's 100% over. And then Kyogre comes out. Kyogre could potentially KO both the Pokemon on my opponent's side of the field, but don't forget that they still have that Life Orb Regieleki in the back, and that will Oko Kyogre from full. Nothing I can do about it outspeeds. All they have to do is take out the Calyrex, which is easily within their grasp. I go ahead and click my moves, but at this point I'm already thinking about game 2, because that is ultimately where this is going to end up, right? For that game 2, so this went wrong at the lead, right? So and yeah, this protect on Groudon's very smart too. It just 100% seals it in their favor. But yeah, I lost 100% at the lead there. Clefairy didn't really do a whole ton for me since it got put to sleep. So what I'm thinking instead is that I need some form of speed control, because Regieleki and its ability to threaten me with a potential max, and if not, then just speed control with Electro Web, was really oppressive. So Whimsicott seems like the play, right? And Charizard's still good. That Lumberry into the face of a Venusaur, still very strong. A Grass move in Solar Beam / Max Overgrowth, very strong in case they attempt to bring that that Slowbro. But yeah, they get the Snarl off, and once we see that this Water Spout doesn't even KO Yveltal from that point, that is valuable information, by the way, though. Clicking those buttons was good, because we basically determined this is almost certainly the AV variant of Yveltal. So yeah, at this point, though, I'm pretty sure I just forfeit. There's no coming back from this. Even if we manage to get the double KO here, we're losing to a Lucky, like I said earlier. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I just clicked the forfeit button here. We can go ahead and skip straight to team preview, since this was a longer set. Come on, Ron, what are you gonna do? I think this is literally me taking all the time I can to think about that game 2 lead. So we'll go ahead and skip. I had to stop earlier, but we're back going into game 2. Like I was saying, we're going with a Whimsicott lead rather than Amoonguss. Speed control versus Regieleki is going to be not rather than Amoonguss, rather than Clefairy rather. Speed control rather than redirection is going to be really big, especially when my redirection can't really take a hit or stop the spread damage. We are taking Kyogre in the back, pretty much have to. But you'll see here that I'm kind of deliberating here and ultimately decide on taking Regieleki over Calyrex. As much as I'd like to have that instant win button into the Slowbro, that Yveltal is just too scary. We've pretty much determined from last game that it has to be AV based on the damage that it took from Astral and from Water Spout. And if it's AV, that means it's carrying Sucker Punch, and I am a choiced Calyrex-Shadow, so there's really just nothing I can do to play around that while bringing it. Instead, Regieleki has the Assault Vest, so it can take it can take some abuse on the special side, and it's physical, so it'll get around that Assault Vest and can just go for big, what is it, not Vault Tackle, Wild Charges into it. It probably won't get to max, that's most likely what Charizard's going to be doing, but still, Regieleki should be quite strong in the late game. So, going into game 2, we're going to see if this updated game plan can work for us here. And my opponent completely switches up their lead with Slowbro and Incineroar. It kind of makes sense that when you have a lead, you can kind of push things, take riskier plays, or just try to change things up and really throw your opponent off, try to prevent my adaptation. What I predict coming out from this, like the obvious play, would be Fake Out into Trick Room. Seems pretty obvious. Whimsicotts generally carry Focus Sash, and I can't taunt because the Slowbro most likely has Oblivious, but Whimsicott still seems like the obvious Mon 2 Fake Out, since Charizard is, could potentially max here. So what I ultimately settle on doing is very similar to my game plan from last week, where I had to deal with a similar opener, where I swap out my Whimsicott for Kyogre to set the rain. Looks like I click a leggy here, but I do click Kyogre, yeah. And then I go for a Hurricane. Don't want to commit my max just yet, but I still want to do as much damage as possible, and the Stab Hurricane is my best bet for that. I choose Incineroar as a target. Multiple reasons for that. First being that Slowbro can just slack off that damage away. We saw that last week, actually. Makes it very difficult to deal with. And also that even though, like, counterintuitively, you'd think that a team with Kyogre would want to just rely on Kyogre to take out the Incineroar, since we can Oko it so easily with Water Spout or Origin Pulse in the rain. But you can't forget, like, multiple things. First off, they're going to get Trick Room ups, which means that a Parting Shot can come out quite easily. Second, they have the ability to set Sun in the back, right? And with speed control, they can lower my Kyogre's health so my Water Spouts do less. So All in all, what that means is that I really want to get as much chip onto that Incineroar as possible, and as you can see, that Hurricane did almost 50%, so very good. So we're going to go for the Water Spout here, and then with Charizard, we're in a really interesting spot, and I go for a read here, if I recall. What I expect to happen is that the Incineroar is going to Parting Shot out. I don't know into who, probably Kyogre, but it could be either Mon, really. And then presumably they go into Groudon to lower my Kyogre's damage output and take advantage of the Trick Room, right? So what I decide to do is bank on that, and there's a lot of shuffling here. Go for the Water Spout and then go for a Blast Burn into that slot. If this pans out for me, what'll happen is the Blast Burn will just straight up OHKO their Groudon, and I will end up getting just full full weather control for the remainder of the battle, which would be really nice. Unfortunately for me, so this Hurricane confusion that was supposed to be great luck actually turns out to be kind of rough in that they get hurt by confusion and therefore just take the hit. So it's great that we get rid of their Incineroar, but it also means that we launch the saddest Blast Burn ever into Slowbro. In retrospect, a Hurricane would have been way nicer here. It would have been fantastic if we'd seen this coming and done the Hurricane instead. Problem being, though, is like that there's no way to predict that confusion, and if they bring out Sun, then my Hurricane is only 50% accurate, although maybe that's still worth going for just to be safe. Anyway, it is what it is. My Charizard's kind of a sitting duck, and now my Kyogre is at half health and staring into a Groudon in Sun, under Trick Room. It's getting a little rough here. So what we have to do here, at this point it becomes a game of stalling out my opponent's Trick Room, right? So we swap in Whimsicott. Can't do anything with Charizard because we're still overcharging from that Blast Burn, but the idea is just that we don't care what happens to Whimsicott here, right? It's like it's not doing much in Trick Room. My opponent basically called my adaptation by going with this Trick Room mode instead of going with Regieleki. So they slack off away the damage. That was predictable. And then they call my defensive play by going for Swords Dance. So this is really big. I can't remember in game one. Like we have absolute confirmation now. This is not an AV Groudon, which is nice to know. Solar Power hurts, but here's the thing: is that Groudon was already incredibly threatening with even without the +2. So the fact that they allowed Charizard to live here is really big. And we've stalled out a lot of their Trick Room. So what I do here is I go for the Energy Ball into Groudon because again, Slowbro can just heal it away. And then I just protect Charizard. Now, if they max Groudon and go for a Rock Fall into Charizard, +2 and the ×4 effective means that they're going to OHKO me through Protect very easily. But the fact that their Trick Room is almost over and that I would regain weather control if I swap in Kyogre after the Trick Room, that tells me that they probably won't want to go for that max. It would just be too much of an investment. So yeah, they go for this Iron Defense here, but most of my team is special, so all it really does for them is give them a better body press. And yeah, they don't go for the max, they just go for a Rock Tomb. So we get this Energy Ball damage off, and we're one turn closer to stalling out this Dynamax, which is really great. Sorry, stalling out this Trick Room, not Dynamax. Unfortunately, I believe there is still one more turn of Trick Room, though. And that is pretty much all that stands between us and the end of this. So what I do is I go for Tailwind, because they almost certainly have that Yveltal waiting in the back. And then I go for Solar Beam into the Slowbro. This probably isn't going to go off, considering that their Groudon can just kill me very quickly. But yeah, we go for that here. If we get it off, then it's going to be amazing damage since we're Solar Power and is super effective, and base 120, I want to say, Solar Beam is. So yeah, Solar Beam, Solar Power, into a Slowbro, quite strong, especially because I think it's actually physically defensive. And they go for Protect on Groudon, which is amazing for us. I really did not expect my Charizard to live through this whole Trick Room, and yet it did. Slowbro goes for the Body Press into Whimsicott. Like, okay, even at +2, that does almost nothing since we are actually a bulky Whimsicott, and it's not very effective. So yeah, we get the Solar Beam off, which is amazing. And I forget how much it does, but yeah, into the red. Very good, very good. Okay. So now we've actually stalled out the Trick Room, so now we pretty much won the game at this point. All we have to do is click Energy Ball onto Slowbro and then go for a Wildfire into the Groudon. We know it's not AV, so even if they Dynamax, this should kill it from this range pretty easily. It has no boosts to special defense. Slowbro might be bulky, but at that range, Energy Ball should take it out quite easily. It is stab and it is super effective, so it should chunk it quite nicely. So yeah, this game was I think we made some good plays and some bad plays, but my opponent also just kind of misused their Trick Room turns, which allowed us to stall through and ultimately come out on top. Had we lost the Charizard, I'm not really sure what the best play would be, and they do go ahead and preserve that Slowbro, so not a bad call, right? Like the Energy Ball is going to do pretty much nothing into a Veltal, but as long as we take out Groudon here, we're golden, especially because the the Tailwind is up, right? So, I mean, Charizard outspeeds a Veltal anyway, but we'll have speed control even for our Kyogre in the back, and there's no way they're getting a Trick Room off. In fact, the Wildfire Chip from this attack on future turns should take it out as well. And they actually do go for the Dynamax here on Groudon, so I guess this is kind of a Hail Mary. They went for Protect last turn as a thing, right? So they could go for the double with a Max Guard, stall it out, and then have both Groudon and a Veltal on the field, but even then, I think we're in a pretty solid shape. But it looks like they don't go for that double, they don't go for the Max Guard, so Energy Ball is just going to tickle a Veltal here, but this Wildfire should just take out Groudon. From this point, we have the game 100% sealed, because we can't forget that we also have that physical Regieleki in the back. Their Intimidate is gone, so as long as we take out the Slowbro, Regieleki will win that 1v1, disregarding our two very other powerful mons in the back. Very powerful other mons, rather. Yeah, so at this point, we're thinking about Game 3, and honestly, I think the same lead is 100% the way to go. Granted, the game can go very differently based on how they play it, how we play it, but we don't want to risk just being completely bowled over like Game 1, and if we lead the same way, we've shown that we can handle this lead that isn't as good for us, and that we would definitely do better into a Regieleki lead with the Tailwind. So yeah, let's go ahead and skip over to Game 3. I'm going to just skip all the way through this because I do pick the same four. Other thing to remember is that I didn't even have to bring out Regieleki, right? They did see the Kyogre, they did not see the Regieleki, so they don't know what I have in the back. They are probably predicting that I would have brought the Calyrex-Shadow again. But they go with the same lead. And so because we have the same two leads against each other, this is where the best of 3 mind games come in, right? It's like they might expect me to do the same thing, and I want to change things up. And so I go for a really risky play here, if I recall, and that is to go for Sunny Day with Whimsicott and Solar Beam with Charizard. They could fake me out. If they fake out Whimsicott, then Charizard is just stuck in the Sunny Day. Stuck in the Solar Beam charge. But I still don't mind doing this, because that would mean that the Instant is stuck in for a turn, right? So this is a good adjustment, in my opinion. We can get really big damage onto the Slowbro, and yes, it can heal it back with Slack Off once Trick Room goes up. But I really think that if we can keep Slowbro on the back foot, it'll never get to set up properly, and they effectively just have one Mon that's doing things. And we turn out to be right; they don't go for the fake out. So we get the Sunny Day up, we get the Solar Power, Solar Beam into Slowbro, which is very nice. So we get to see this pretty cool animation again. It's such an old move, and yet you very rarely see it. Yeah, so that's very nice damage. It's actually a lower roll than last game, which is a bit unfortunate. Would have loved to see that get in the red so that Whimsicott could get the kill later on. But yeah, and they go for the parting shot into the Whimsicott slot, which is really interesting. And I think that was the intent was to catch Kyogre if I went for the same play as last game, but yeah, no, we're gonna be in a relatively even position, I think, here, because whatever they bring out, it would probably be Groudon. Yeah, it was Groudon. So, I mean, as Trick Room goes up, we are in a kind of a rough spot, right? Like, kind of the same spot we were in last game. We have to stall out this Trick Room. That's the only thing, but all there is to it here, really. So with that, the fact that we have to stall, I think I just go for Protect on Charizard. I know it's very obvious, but a Rock Tomb or a Rock Fall will take me out easily. Whimsicott doesn't really threaten much. I do ultimately decide to go for Protect on Charizard, and then I believe I go for an Energy Ball onto Slowbro. It would be very nice if they allow me to KO Slowbro, but they are almost certainly going to go for Slack Off and heal all that damage back, right? But the thing is that I kind of want to just keep doing this, because if, like I was saying earlier, if I keep chipping Slowbro away with this, stab super effective Energy Ball, It's not even going to do 50% because Slowbro is so bulky and Whimsicott is spec to be bulky itself, so it has very little attack investment. If we keep it healing, it can't be setting up, it can't be doing body presses. Yeah, it just can't be oppressive at all, which is really nice. They do go ahead and choose to max the ground on here, which I think is a really good adjustment from Game 2 on their part. Game 2, they attempted to just not have to invest in it early. But, you know, they have more Trick Room turns to work with this time around when Groudon is out on the field, and they just know that, like, I was able to preserve my Charizard through their Trick Room last game, and they don't want to risk that at all. So yeah, they get that Slack off. That's really good. And they go for Rock Fall into my Charizard. This is also a case I was thinking later on, like the variant that my teammate used of this team puts Charm on Whimsicott. That would have been fantastic to have into this matchup. I would have loved that. But no such luck, unfortunately. So yeah, they slack off away a bunch of the damage, but we Energy Ball and we bring them down to 50% again. Not quite, but with the Sand Chip, they will be back down to 50%. So, you know, we keep them on the back foot. Charizard takes the Rock Fall. So at this point, you know, we're still just trying to make it through this Trick Room, and I go for the double Protect. Reason being, I mean, Rock Fall through Protect still did more than 50%, so even if we get it, they could kill us. But you know, it's always possible that they will get greedy and go for the max move on Whimsicott and then attempt to body press away Charizard. We resist it, but Charizard's not very bulky, so I don't know the calc on that. They probably know it better than I do. They might pick up the kill with Sand. So yeah, we go for the double, and then we just attack Slowbro again for the same reason I've been saying. If we get it, great. You know, we're really just trying to stall out time as much as we can. Charizard goes for it. It fails. It's fine. That was a bit of a Hail Mary. And yeah, as predicted, just another slack off. Their healing is notably more than my damage is here, so that is definitely less than ideal. But they do the Rock Fall into the Charizard slot anyway, so missing the double was completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And we get the Energy Ball up here. It's kind of, because we saw how relatively little it did, we might not be keeping up with their healing anymore. There's a good chance that that they won't even bother to slack off this turn. But now we bring in this Life Orb Kyogre, and we have kind of a dilemma on our hands, right? Is that the Quake into the Kyogre slot seems really obvious, and if I recall, they only have one more turn of Trick Room going into this, maybe two. But they only have one more turn of Dynamax, most importantly, right? So if we want to call that really obvious Quake into Kyogre, then we could go for a Max Guard with it, stall out their final turn of Dynamax, and then, you know, Geyser into that slot. Issue being that they could reclaim their weather control if they do that, and there's also always the chance that they just read me. I also know that because they're not AV, and because I'm Life Orb, even with a special defense boost from a Max Quake, I should still kill with a Geyser here, right? So that tells me that the safest play is just to go for the Geyser and keep the Max Quake damage. In retrospect, maybe I should have gone for a read like this, but yeah, it's rough, right? Because they could also, you know, potentially go for a Rock Fall to change the weather and make their Yveltal in the back of a much better endgame. Yeah, it's really easy to talk about this in hindsight. At the time, I was panicking a bit, and you'll see that even more in the later turns. Okay, so Slowbro does slack off again. So ultimately, all this Energy Ball spam did serve its purpose. I mean, Whimsicott isn't doing anything otherwise, right? Like maybe getting a bit of chip on Groudon. So yeah, I'm overall happy with that. It means Slowbro hasn't been able to stack up Iron Defense boosts and do big body press damage. That Max Quake does really hurt, like more than I'd like it to. You know, Groudon's a beast, and Kyogre's physical defense is not amazing, but we take it, and now this Geyser does, if I recall, just Oko Groudon right away. So yeah, that's amazing. We're in a relatively decent spot here in the 3v2. It's a solid lead in the situation. But now I have a bit of another dilemma on my hands, right? Is that this Slowbro threatens to put up Trick Room yet again, and their Yveltal will almost certainly have Sucker Punch. So the speed control into my Kyogre is kind of irrelevant, but the if they get up Trick Room again, then that Yveltal has a solid chance of dealing with my Regieleki, which I really don't love. So yeah, we're in an interesting spot here. We have to determine which of these two is the bigger threat. Um, in retrospect, I do think that the Yveltal was the bigger threat, but what we also can't forget is that Yveltal is not the only Pokemon they have in the back, right? It's almost certainly what they bring out, because Incineroar would be... No, they have one more turn of Trick Room, right? So Incineroar is the play, and they can Parting Shot out. So basically, yeah, I had to decide what was the hardest thing to deal with here. I think I do actually end up going for the Geyser into Incin because they have only one. They do have one more turn of Trick Room left, so Slowbro isn't an immediate threat. Yeah, they're almost certainly going for the Parting Shot, but would really like some damage into that Incin if they keep it in, or even into the Yveltal. And then I go ahead and swap Whimsicott out, the reason being that Trick Room is about to end. I'll have Regieleki situated to deal with Yveltal as it comes back in, and also to deal with Slowbro. We have that super effective damage into both slots, and they just go for Body Press with Slowbro. That's really smart, actually. They're getting Chip onto Kyogre, which means that the Sucker Punches in the late game are going to be way more impactful. Since I pretty much almost certainly have speed control on my side, it's just going to come down for them to whether they can get all of my win con pieces into range of that priority Sucker Punch. I go for the Geyser, but with the -1 on Kyogre, with the almost certainly Assault Vest on Yveltal, it means that they take it, which is rough. But now Trick Room's over, and now this is the dilemma I was thinking of earlier: is that do I take out Slowbro or Yveltal, right? Them getting that Trick Room back up puts me in a really rough position. The obvious choice is to target the Yveltal, but here's the thing: is that if they swap out Yveltal back into Incin, they'll get an Intimidate onto my Alecki, and then proceed to get Trick Room up, and then they'll be able to play with Slowbro plus Yveltal into my otherwise very fast team, right? Is the only thing I have that would be slower than their Yveltal would be Kyogre, and they have Sucker Punch plus Body Press to deal with that. Similarly into my Regieleki, it gets really dangerous. So, I mean, you can see it comes right down to the wire on the timer, and I do choose to double the Slowbro, and this proves to be a really big mistake. My hope was just that the Wild Charge would Oko Slowbro and it would be irrelevant, but unlike the team from last week that was carrying safety goggles on Slowbro, this week was bringing the normal Wakan Berry, which yeah, kind of rough that both the teams I played with this had the item that countered my counter to Slowbro. But yeah, it means they do that. They get the Snarl off, so now my Kyogre is sitting at -2. And but even with that, Geyser plus the Wild Charge does actually manage to bring down Slowbro. So all that's very nice. But the big issue now is that they're going to bring out their Incineroar. My Regieleki is at -1, but more importantly, the Yveltal, the Incineroar has a Fake Out into my Alecki, right? And because I'm Assault Vest, I don't have a way to protect through it and just threaten the next turn. So yeah, they could protect and double Alecki. God, thinking through this clearly now in retrospect, I really should have just double attacked to take care of this. But my mind was going around in circles. Like, I need Kyogre to deal with Incin, but I need Alecki to deal with Yveltal, and they can Fake Out and Sucker Punch Kyogre from this range. What I ended up doing was protecting Kyogre and swapping Alecki out into Whimsicott. Idea being that I could... honestly, in retrospect, I don't know what the idea was. This was a hard throw on my part, and I really feel dumb in retrospect. So what I'm doing here is Alecki is my win con, right? It's like I need to take out that Yveltal. Even at -1 attack, I probably could still have picked up the KO with a Wild Charge, and instead I'm taking my easy win con off of the field and forcing myself into a situation where they can pin me. The correct play was to pivot Kyogre into Whimsicott and then attack Yveltal with Wild Charge. I would have been faked out, it would have been fine, but you know, nothing Yveltal could do could seriously damage Regieleki. I don't even think 2 Sucker Punches would have done it, and then we could have just killed it there. At this point now, the game is in a really rough spot. I realize that I'm within range of a Sucker Punch on Kyogre, so I just go for another Protect and an Energy Ball, the Yveltal. This is... God, I mean, if I had Moonblast instead of Energy Ball, I would have been in a fine position, because that would have been enough to take out Yveltal from this range. But instead, yeah, we have to go for this Bally switch here. I I swap Kyogre into Regieleki to avoid the potential to avoid the Sucker Punch that's almost certainly coming. But my opponent's very intelligent here. They go for the Sucker Punch, of course, but then they follow that up with a Flare Blitz into the same slot. First, we'll see my Energy Ball bounce off that Yveltal, do nothing. But yeah, they followed up with Flare Blitz, and even in the rain, I was hoping that the rain and the bit of bulk on my Lucky would help, but I mean, it stops me from dying, but it puts me in Sucker Punch range, so now both of my major threats are within priority range, and the game is effectively over. I think the proper gamble was to swap Whimsicott out into Kyogre, and then proceed to swap Whimsicott into a Lucky and protect the Kyogre just to not be targetable by Sucker Punch, right? But at this point, the game is pretty much lost because both of my win cons are now within KO range of the Sucker Punch. So I just go for this here. I don't know why I click Tailwind at this point. It's pretty much over. So I go for it. What I ultimately need to happen here, the reason I click Tailwind is what I ultimately need to happen is for Sucker Punch to somehow not be within range on Kyogre. This gives me the speed control. If Kyogre somehow miraculously lives the Sucker Punch, then an Origin Pulse will win me the game, right? So that's what I ultimately go for here. But if I recall, the calc is if it's not guaranteed, it's almost guaranteed. So, we play to our outs, but ultimately I just kind of threw this game at this point. It's a little sad, but if I did have to lose a set in World Cup, I'm happy it was to a national champion like Melvin. They did play really well. This matchup wasn't great for me, but I think that the way that the leads played out and the mons that they brought, I think I did have an advantage in this that was somewhat squandered. All in all, it was a great set. Really happy to get to play against a player of this caliber. I think I clicked Protect here as completely silly. Yeah. Yeah, we all have off days. But yeah, so we're gonna see this one end in a second. I've been a little behind on my recording, so I'll have one more coming next week to be for our round of 8 against Canada. I believe I play against someone who got a top 4 in a regional too. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that all with you. You can see as Kyogre goes down here to the priority move, and yeah, I'll wait till then. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, yeah, good games to Melvin, and until next time.